Hi, it's Melly here, and I'm just here today to do a quick tutorial showing you how to attach the head and the body for your Darla deer. So first what I'm going to do is make sure that I'm using a really good quality polyester thread. So that's the first essential thing. Please make sure it's not an inferior quality one. This needs really strong thread to do this correctly. And you want to make sure that there's no chance that your thread will snap during this sewing. We need to make sure that that connection is really tight, really secure, and I suggest getting a really good brand of polyester thread, such as Gooderman, rather than going to some of the cheaper quality ones that can sometimes snap. As a secondary item to that is make sure you're definitely not using cotton. So never use cotton for this. You will just be pulling your hair out because the thread is just going to snap constantly. You're never going to be able to get a nice tight connection for this one in that situation. So what I'm going to just do first is thread my needle with a double length of polyester thread. So you'll see here that I have folded open my thread, and the ends that are loose, so not the folded end but the other end with the two loose ends, is what I have threaded through the eye of my needle. So I'll show you something later on, which is a really great tip when you're sewing something on like this and you want a really tight connection. So first what I'm going to do is get my body. Now, as mentioned in the pattern, you really need to make sure that body is really securely stuffed, really solidly stuffed. It has to be nice and firm. If you feel like you can get anything more in there, just keep on stuffing. And if you've used a good stuffing tool, you'll be able to keep just getting it in there. Same with the head, probably not quite as firm as the body, but still super, super firm. Make sure you're filling out all those shapes so that you get all the nice curves. And then once it feels like the head's nicely filled, you're just kind of folding in that bottom raw edge of the head there. Okay, so that's going to kind of naturally happen as we're working, but just with your finger, just slightly fold that in so that you've got that nice smooth edge on the bottom of your neckline. Then what we're going to do is grab the body, grab the head, and we're literally going to shove this body into the head. So I just start in one direction and just kind of move it around. So we make sure that we're getting that nice and secure. You can see how already we're getting kind of that fold there of the headline on the neckline on the head, and it's kind of already forming the shape that we want, but it does need a little bit of work to get this nice. Now I like to have my deer's head a little bit cocked to the side. That's completely up to you. You might want your head to be straight on so that the deer's looking forward. I kind of enjoy it to be a little bit to the side. It's just how I like it. So what I've done here is I've lined up the seam of the head there, where it goes down to the neck, up with the side panel here. So rather than, if you want it centered, obviously you center it within that gusset. If you want it cocked to the side, just match that seam up with that seam. I just like that as a bit of a guide. Now what we're going to do first is just gently, we're going to kind of pin this in place where we want it. So I'm just going to get a pin like this. I'm going to act as if this is a pin cushion. So I'm just going to stab through into the neck, all right, so that we're just kind of securing those edges. Excuse my shaking hands. I do have essential tremor, and sometimes when I'm trying to demonstrate something, it gets a bit in the way. So again, we're just going to go a little bit further around. I'm just going to stick that in there. Keep going around. Keep treating it as a pin cushion. Just stuffing those needle pins in through the skin of the head and through to the neck. Now do be careful for your fingers because the neck's quite thin, so as you can see, the pins are coming out the other side. But just keep going until you're quite happy with how that's going. Now, our first sewing around this head onto the neck is actually really just to kind of get it in place. And then after that, we can be a little bit more fussy. We can kind of shape things a little bit more as we want on the consecutive turns around the neck. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my needle. Now I want to show you that trick, which is why I thread the needle that way. So I've got my loop from my folded polyester in that side, and I have threaded the raw ends. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first stitch into the body. Okay, so I'm just taking a little stitch there and pull it out. And then what I'm going to do is, before I pull this stitch all the way through, I'm going to put my needle through that folded end. So what I'm doing there essentially is creating a slip knot of my first stitch. So now this is fully secured. There's no knot that can pull out. There's nothing that can go wrong as I'm attaching this head with the thread sort of pulling through and making me have to start all over again. So now that I've done that, I am going to take a little stitch exactly where that stitch ended. I'm going to take a stitch into my head. Okay, next where that ends, I'm going to take a stitch into the neck. And this is called ladder stitch, okay? So you might be familiar with that if you've done some of my patterns before. And we're just going to continue doing that all around the neck and head. So we're going to go stitch into the head. And of course you've got all those little pin ends coming out, so you just got to be careful that you don't catch your thread on there too much. Okay, and then, sorry, a stitch through the neck. Now, as I said, this turn going around does not need to be neat or too wonderful. At this stage, we're just getting the head secured in place, okay? So we're just wanting to make sure we get everything in the position that we want it in. So again, another stitch in the head. Another stitch in the neck. Now once you reach a pin like I'm reaching this one here, I'm close to that. I don't really need that in there anymore to secure the neck in place. So I can take him out. Next stitch, stitch into the body, stitch into the head, stitch into the body, stitch into the head. So I'll probably just fast forward this next little bit because you get the idea. I'm just going to continue to go around and then I'll be back with you once we get to the other side. Okay, so now I'm pretty much back to my starting point. So as you can see, I have secured the head all the way around. Now, as I said, that bit didn't need to be too neat. Obviously, as you're going around, make sure you are constantly pulling your thread taut to make sure it's as neat as possible. But as I said, that first little bit doesn't need to be that neat. Now, it's secured now, okay? But we're going to go around at least one more time. Probably I would prefer to go around 2 more times to make this a really secure attachment, but also to manipulate how the head is sitting on the neck. So what you can keep doing now is keep going further up the head, further down the neck, whatever it is that you want to do to create the head being a slightly different way on the neck. So for instance, I feel like I want this one to have its head sort of leaning forward a little bit more than that. So what that means that I need to do is on my next go around, I need to be taking my stitches a little bit higher up the head and a little bit lower down the neck. And that's just going to join a little bit further down and give me sort of a little bit of a more control of my shape. So this next stitch I'm going to take into the body, and you can see I'm not taking it right up close to my previous stitches. I've taken it probably about 1/8 of an inch down the neckline there. And then what I'm going to do is likewise go about 1/8 of an inch up on the head there for my next stitch. Okay, and you'll see how automatically they're kind of pulling closed in the way that ladder stitch does, and it's going to let me get that neck coming down a little bit further forward. Now if you want to help this, you can hold it down a little bit with your hand, so that's allowing us to get a nice tight finish there. You're just going to take, a couple of stitches, and every time you've taken a couple of stitches through the neck and through the head, give them a nice good pull to make sure they're nice and taut. Now this is why we need to use this polyester thread. You can't do this with cotton, it would just break, or an inferior quality polyester thread would do the same. So I'm going to continue to take these stitches. Now this second time around I don't have pins in the way, I don't have anything kind of bugging me, so I'm able to be a lot more precise with these stitches. So I'm making them smaller, I'm making them neater, but again, I'm still just taking one small stitch into the neck, holding that taut, keeping the head in place, one stitch into the head. Now you can see that with my other hand, I'm kind of pushing that head down so that I'm keeping it in that downward position, because that just lets me really know where to put my stitches. So again, another one in the neck, another one through the head. So the first time around really was just getting the neck onto the head. This second turn around, I am securing it in the position I want it. And then the third go around I like to do just to make it neat and tidy and reinforce that position that it's in. And just to make sure it's a really nice strong toy as well, especially if you're gonna have children playing with it, you really wanna make sure that it's really nice and secure. So again, I'm probably going to fast forward here, but I'm just going to keep going around, keeping everything nice and taut as I go. Small little stitches. As I said, where your stitch ends is where your next stitch begins. So lined up with that on the neck is where I will start my next stitch. That's the nature of ladder stitch. So I'll meet you once I've gone all the way around again. Okay, so now I'm all the way around the second time, and I'm just going to do that third time to further reinforce everything. But you'll see how nice and neat it is getting. It's never going to be completely perfect. Don't forget, with the pattern we are going to also put a ribbon around the neck, which, you know, hides kind of that joint a little bit, but you still want it to be really secure. Like I'm pulling on that quite tightly. You can see how secure that is, other than that little section that are my last few stitches. It's really, really taut. I really could end at this 2 rows of gown, but I'm going to do that third row around because I just really like to be really sure that everything's really joined perfectly. Probably also hopefully have noticed how important it was for me to stuff really firmly. You can see that obviously to get this nice tight connection, to get these stitches so nice and secure, you needed to have a really sturdy head, a really sturdy neck to hold all that together. Alright, so again I'm going to fast forward, you get the idea, and then I'll get to the end and I'll show you how I finish off my thread and sink my knots, because that's also a very important thing, to have that tight connection. Okay, so now I'm back to my beginning spot. I've gone around 3 times. You can see how lovely that's looking. I'm really happy with the positioning of the neck. It's skewed to the side, as I mentioned, and I've also made the nose slightly directed down, which I really like as well. But you choose where you want to direct your position of your head. All right, so now I've gone all the way around and I'm pulling this thread really tautly here, okay? I don't want to let those release. You'll find by the time you've gone around 3 times, they're really starting to hold themselves anyway. They're really nice and secure. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take a knot, and I'm getting that to go close down to where I've come out. So not fully all the way down, but you can see there, it's probably around 1/4 of an inch up from where the thread's coming out. And I'm going to make that a double knot now. So I want it to be a little bit fatter. Okay, so now it's a double knot, and I might even make it a triple one. Okay, so we're making that knot a triple knot there. Beautiful. So I hope you can see that there. Put my finger there, you can see I've got a little nice triple knot there. And it's about now that it's gone to a triple knot, it's about 1/8 of an inch away from where it comes out of the fabric. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take another stitch. So this last stitch was, as you can see, in the neck. So I'm going to take this next stitch through the head, and I'm just going to put it through with my needle to the other side of the head. Again, kind of where the stitches are. All right, I'm going to pull it through. Now that knot is going to catch there, but we're going to pull this thread so that that knot sinks in to the head, okay? So hopefully you can hear it. Did you hear that? I hope that came through. You heard that little click, which is where that knot sunk into the head there, okay? Now we're going to do the exact same thing. So we're out on this other side and our head's there. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to take a triple knot close to the end, triple or double, just depends on your thread and the thickness. So there we are, we've done another one. You can see there the knot is close to where it comes out. And now I'm going to take another stitch into the head. Actually, this one I'm going to just do into the neck and through, coming out to another spot around the neckline. And pull it through. Again, I'm going to pull that so it clicks through. There we are, I hope you heard that again. And I'm going to do it a third time, okay? So I have sunk the knots 3 times. If you have ample thread left, keep going. Just keep going as many times as you can. It's really going to secure that attachment. The more times you do it, the better. I'm just doing it 3 times here because I think that's about all the thread I've got left to play with. So there we are, another triple knot. And again, I'm going to put it through and out. Any old place really. At this stage you can see I'll put it through the head, and that doesn't matter because this one I'm going to cut off at the fabric. So pull that through. Again, I'm going to pull to sink that knot. There we are, he went through. And then now I can safely just snip that thread right there, and that little end will sink into the head. Okay, so now it's attached with 3 sunken knots, okay? And now there's no knots coming out here, there's no loose threads, there's nothing at all. The first start was anchored by that slip knot, and at the end we have sunk the knots into the body. So they're well and truly hidden, and really nice clean finish. Okay, so I hope that's helped you to attach your head onto Darla, or attach your head onto any other design that you're making with ladder stitch. Enjoy your making.